I'm Welcome to Play It Forward. As always, I'm Zon the Daddy Dev, and I'm joined with the wonderful marketing machine called Sweaty, who told me to say that. Is that good? Is that
Yeah, right. I told you to say that. I don't know
okay?
what you're
That's good.
talking about, man.
Okay, this is our NewGrounds episode. This is the second time I have to record this because the first time, unfortunately, the recording got messed up. And we're going to be talking about testing grounds. This idea that developers should test their skills with an audience, prove their skills with an audience before they actually put them out on market. And Esmeralda, some people may consider you a bitch, but I consider you my personal hero because you did point this out to a person who may not be ready for market. They might have put a game jam game out there on Steam, and it's not doing anyone good for all the other developers, right? And she basically related the same idea, saying, so I specifically logged in to say no. Sorry, but this is absolutely not ready for market. Go back in time 20 years and re-release as a free Flash game. And interesting enough, as we're talking about free Flash games, that's kind of how Newgrounds started. It was most of the Newground classic content is in Flash. More to the point, Microsoft Edge, yes, I know, that's the WWE Edge, right? Because again, Microsoft couldn't think of a better name, versus Google Chrome. Right now, Microsoft Edge actually plays Flash games without having to do a lot of extra work. So I will be demonstrating Newgrounds today using Microsoft Edge. I personally am a fan of Google, but Microsoft Edge is doing what I need to do. So, Swenny, would you like to talk about Edmund McMillan?
Yeah, so we talked about this before, how important it is for game developers, just like Esmeralda was, I hope I didn't butcher her name. I think that's what she was called. She was talking about is that there's a lot of these games that are just like complete and utter crap, right? And in her words, and maybe in mine, I don't know. Anyways, so that's why I wanted to talk about it in Macmillan, because before he did Super Meat Boy, he actually put a lot of good and questionable games out on Newgrounds, right?
Right. Let's see if we can. I have a link right here. I'm gonna check his thing on Microsoft Edge. Not paid by Microsoft. It just seems to work on this. Okay, please continue as I look at.
And yeah, so basically what he's doing is what we call in the business industry prototyping, right? So you do a lot of different games and you see what sticks. And instead of putting all your different games on Steam Greenlight, which is why we have this huge supply of questionable games on Steam Greenlight. By the way, we talked about that before. Look at our other videos about that. But you actually do prototyping. You see what sticks and what doesn't. And Jonathan Blow, the creator of Braid, has been talking about this as well, and so has Rami Ismail from Nuclear Throne. And all of these guys have been talking about and really um, promoting the fact that people should do prototyping. Because what prototyping does, it allows you to show a minimum viable product, a product that's not finished, but it has the elements of the what a finished game would look like, and it really shows you like, yeah, look at this one here, for example, right? It never, as I recall, I haven't seen this one as a finished version, but it has some really interesting elements that we also saw in Hue, for example. Hue has used a lot of these elements where you can kind of change dimensions, like he's changing colors in Hue. You know, have you heard about that game, Hue?
Yeah. I think that. I can't get out of this. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of games like this style and do this type of gameplay, but I think this is one of the first actually. And another thing to note about Edmund's work is that he's not a programmer. He's got the unfair advantage of just being an artist, but he's such a great artist that people just want to work with him.
Yeah, and that's the same. Yeah, kind of to get back to what I was talking about. Rami, he talks about prototyping as well, and he has a team. Rami is a programmer, but the guy that does all the programming, or not the program, the prototyping, is JW. JW, right? So he does like 300 games a year, and two of those are really great, and the other ones are crap, right? That's actually his own words. But like you have to experiment a lot in order to find out what works. and Newgrounds is a perfect ground for testing. And that's what we kind of want to get into is that, you know, even though you've made a game, and especially your first couple of games, it doesn't mean that, it really belongs on Steam. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but at least try it on Newgrounds and try it on these different platforms, because as Edmund Macmillan he says people the most important thing is just for people to play your game, right? Because as soon as they play your game, then you kind of have some kind of validation of whether or not this will be a hit, right? Yeah, it's a great game. Yeah, it's cool.
I
It's
can't
just
stop.
basically just a random generator of icons.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me of
Or
the game that I'm kind of working on. This is really nice. Oh my god. I guess this is why I'm a fascist, because I'm labeling people. Let's see. Let's see if you can spell this right. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, you're right, and that was the thing too, that he said that in Indie Game the movie, where it was this idea that you just gotta get people to play this game. Now, here's the thing about that though. Indie Game the movie has been noted as one of the most inspirational movies, and also one of the worst movies to get people excited about game design, because it doesn't really, or game development, because it doesn't really show all the horrible things that could go wrong. But
mm,
what's interesting though is that Edmund's advice in there is get people to play your game. Just get people to play your game. Forget about the money. Forget about anything else. Just get people to play your games. Now, as a marketer, how can you explain that as practical advice versus it just being theoretical or magical advice, if you will?
well, we operate under some of the same principles, actually. When we're doing campaigns, we have assumptions about what's going on. We have researched our target group. We've researched what games they played before. We have some assumptions about what they were like, but we have to do small experiments, A/B testing, and all kinds of small experiments to really find out if our assumptions are correct. Um, and I think this is probably true in most industries. If you get to experiment and you really have all the tools that like today you have all the tools available for you to do that. There's a good example of a friend of mine, right? He had this idea of I'm not going to say what it was, but he 3D printed it, right? And it was a functional tool that you could use, and he could see how he could 3D print it in a lot of copies and actually have it sell. But before he wanted to do that, he took pictures of it, like these design pictures, and put it in great lighting and stuff like that, and he made a landing page, right? And he just described the product. He described the three main aspects of the product, and he had a buy now button. He had only one example of it, right? So as soon as the first person would buy the product, then he would just close down the site, right? But that's his way of validating the product. So we have all these tools available to us today to actually test and see if our hypotheses are right. Um, and it's so sad to see that so many game developers actually don't use this. So they use they use years in a basement creating a game, and they never validate it. So they put it out and they think like, oh God, now they're going to be millionaires, but nobody's going to buy it because, or sometimes some people buy it and that's a success story, but unfortunately, most other times they don't, and it's a lot of wasted resources, wasted time, crushed dreams.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that we talk about in the group that you started, marketing cheat codes, where you are trying to like put out like tips and tricks in order to get people to like actually build their audiences and A/B test and do all these wonderful things before they actually take the risk to put it on Kickstarter, so forth and so on. Having some experience with Kickstarter and stuff too, and I know that that this is something that you kind of have to do to get people to get the word out. So one thing to start here is, let's get back on
Can I
track.
just Yeah, I just want to
Oh, sure.
actually, I can't explain what the product is. I just gonna say what the product is. The thing is, my friend, he did just come back to the 3D printing thing. He did an iPhone cover, a really unique iPhone cover in a design that he created himself. and he printed it in one version, and that could easily be used. And there was a fine little prototype, and he sold it. Like it was sold the first day that he put it out there, and that was his idea of validating the product. He could have done it in 3 or 6 or 7 different examples, or maybe 20, but he wanted to do a product with as little resources used, as little time used as possible to kind of validate his idea. Because if nobody would buy it, he shouldn't continue doing it. And so let's say nobody would have bought it. Um, you go and do something else, and you don't waste the resources on it. And that's the same with games. That's what I wanted to get my point across.
Or you also learn from it too. As you mentioned before, maybe your prototype, it's a good idea, but your prototype has been executed in a way where it's just not usable. And then you kind of have to revisit it, rework it a couple of times to really see if it could actually work. But yeah, I totally understand what you mean. Anyway, getting back on track here. Here's a question, but Newgrounds is oversaturated. What do you think about that, where there's this idea that there's just too many games now in Newgrounds? It's definitely not what it wasn't before, and we'll talk more about that with the other slides. But if someone says, "Hey, there's just too many games here. No one's going to see my game." What do you say to that?
Um, again, this is an unpopular opinion, but oversaturated is just an excuse for not trying. I really, really think so. And I've heard this so many times. And the thing is, people are just not trying. They're just saying it's saturated. Of course, some markets are more saturated than others. But this one, think about it. If you put it on Newgrounds, you're not selling it, right? People can play it directly. And so if you go to the right forums, the right subreddits or whatever, and you post your game there, there's no barriers there. They can press it and play it directly. So
Well,
nobody's
there
going to
might
tell
be a
me that.
barrier if they're like have a Flash game and they're on Google Chrome. I'm sorry, I love Google, but come on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. But again, there's a lot fewer barriers than if they had to buy it on Steam.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that like on my recent game that we posted from the Game Jam, we got over 500 plays. And what I do is that like I look at certain players who play certain games, and I just ask them, "Hey, I made a game. Would you mind playing it?" And most of the time they respond positively. And so that's one of the things that contributed to the 500 plays. But I've had other games I released that have gotten 300, 400 plays just for posting it at the right time. And yeah, it's really cool. So that's more players than I've gotten on other sites I've used. So anyway, the other thing I want to talk about is YouTubers play games from Newgrounds. This is something that people need to know. And one of those games one of the things I've seen in this Proving Grounds is, as you post it on Newgrounds, and if it does get picked up on YouTube, it could lead to a Kickstarter before it gets on Steam. And this is really cool. So one example is this: when goats join cults. And this became an actual thing. Mark, did I say his name? Markiplier played this game. All right, the internet has been blessed us this day. It hasn't crashed, so let's look at the Kickstarter. So what's cool is that if you play this game on Steam, he's got a link to the Kickstarter. I think I missed out though. I totally am bummed out. I missed out. But he was just asking for like $1,000. I gotta stop moving this too much. And so right off the bat, let me ask you this: what do you think about the $1,000 he's asking for? Is that
I
a
think
good
it's
thing?
great. I think it's great. It's people would be more questionable if it was $10,000. Again, people have different opinions. But if you ask for $1,000 or $500 or whatever, people are more susceptible to back it because there's bigger probability of it being like successfully backed, right? Um, and it's also like it doesn't matter if it's $500, if it's $5, if it's $50. It's a way of validating your game. As soon as somebody takes the money out of the pocket and says, "Hey, I actually want to buy this product," you have a validated idea. You have a validated product. So what most people do when they do a game or they do any kind of idea, they're afraid of constructive feedback, right? They're afraid of of hearing like that's a crappy idea. That's crap. What the fuck is that? Um, so so they go and they ask their friends or their mom. And what does the mom say? They always say like, I love you no matter what. And this, by the way, is an amazing product. Oh my God, I would totally buy it. And the friends go like, oh my God, that's a great product. I would totally buy it. But then as soon as you ask them to get the money out of the pocket, actually the unfortunate truth is most people won't buy it. So as soon as you get a Kickstarter, as soon as you get people to kind of take money out of the pocket and really validate the idea, that's when you know you have a success, or at least a product that people want to buy.
Well, I dare cite and potentially cross Jim Sterling's son. Jim Sterling, in an episode, he cited that, like, but these are really terrible games. I think this game is actually good to play. Dang it, it's too much of this pacing stuff. I wanted to show the game, but let's see if it pops up now. And the thing that he had mentioned, no submission exists. This is totally, because I'm pasting here. This game is totally working, but it's not working right now. Anyway, the thing that Jim Sterling had said is that for other games that asked for like $500, he pointed out the fact, well, do you really need $500 to play this game or to make this game? And that's a good point, because, like, you know, he really questioned, like, what does $1,000 really cover? Is that marketing? Is that, you get what I'm saying? So as far as like as far as a test to see if people are interested in your content, in your game, I get that. This is a pretty good test. But as far as, like, what does the cost cover, as if it's game production, you know, $1,000 doesn't really go too far. One thing to note, though, and I mentioned this in our Steam changing everything episode or whatnot, is, you know, now that Steam could be asking for $1,500 or $5,000, that could be your goal to get on Steam's direct service now. So again, it's
Exactly,
like Steam kind of did a favor on that. Is it gonna load?
And that's why I'm so excited about this Steam Direct, is because at least this is my hypothesis of what's going to happen. I think that as soon as Steam Direct comes in, Steam Greenlight goes out, the supply of games is going to go down a little bit, but the quality is going to go up, because as the barriers to entry kind of gets increased a little bit. Again, we don't know if it's going to be $5,000 or if it's going to be $5, but it's going to have some kind of price on the what it's going to cost to kind of submit a game, right? And I think that platforms such as Kickstarter and Patreon and YouTube and all these kind of platforms are going to be utilized to get that profit, to get, you know, these $100 or $200 or whatever it's going to cost to submit that game. And I think that's going to give a lot more than Steam Greenlight has given, because what Steam Greenlight has given is just like a thumbs up or thumbs down. But if you get validated through Kickstarter, for example, just for $200, it's still people that would actually pay $200 for your game. So there's a lot bigger chance of it succeeding on Steam Greenlight, right? Or Steam, the Steam platform, right?
Yeah. I'm so sorry. You can't hear the music that's kind of cutting you off. I can't find a way to... Oh, there it is. I didn't turn the sound off.
Yeah, I played that game. It's I don't know how to feel about that game.
Okay, here's the thing. I think it's a cleverly written game. I think it deserves to be on Greenlight, or actually to be on Steam. It has not made it, as far as I know. From last time I checked, it hasn't made it on Greenlight, but it is a pretty well written and put together game, and that's my thing. And it had a following, you know. And Markiplier also played it and had a really good time with it. Anyway, moving on, keeping on track. So name your favorite. Oh yeah, we want to do some community outreach stuff here. So if you can, if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, where we're posting these videos, please name your favorite game on NewGrounds and why, for a small prize. That will probably be me doing art or something and wouldn't be worth $5, but it will be a very, very small prize if you can give us like your favorite game on NewGrounds and why. Comment on our YouTube video, or comment on Facebook below where we post this video, please. At this point, Swenny, are we taking troll comments as well? Is that okay? Can they put troll
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. The why not is, but not comments that would get you kicked out of a group. Okay, we're not inciting anyone to make any horrible comments that would get them kicked out. Anyway, here we go. It's a good thing. Oh yeah, I want to show this really quick. This whole idea of it's a good thing if NewGrounds has low numbers. This came out of one of the conversations in the marketing cheat codes group, and I just wanted to show this as far as what NewGrounds traffic has been. So yeah, if you see here, it was a lot more active in 2010. But it's kind of gone down. It's got some up spikes recently, but it's still been a down spiral. I've checked on the NewGrounds website itself, where you can actually check on users. They give that information freely, who's active, who's joined, and they do get it looks like they get a good amount of new subscribers or new users that they don't seem to be fake as far as I can tell, and it looks like it's over the millions. So you have like
Yeah, it's still important to say. I mean, that's still 15 million active users. I mean, that's a pretty significant number still,
well, I think it looks like it
even though
dropped
it
to
was 60
14
million
million
in
now in March.
2010, but still.
So that's for, and the thing is that I've looked at some of the forum posts because the forums are kind of dead from what they used to be, but there's people boasting that they're like high level now because they changed the system. I wonder how reflective this is of the system changing. They changed it where you have to level up in the service in order to get like protection from spam. Your opinion actually matters more if you prove yourself in their social networking system that you're a real quality user. So the quality of comments has gone up as well. I think it's also the fact. You know what? Actually, this was my assumption, but it's not true. I thought it was the fact that a lot of the NewGrounds users had gotten older and were more mature. But interestingly enough, no, a lot of teenagers are still joining the site, but now that they have this new system, there's less trolly, spammy comments now. So you get really good comments. Well, I mean, they're not all hurtful. Basically, you don't have to worry about Trump-like comments that are tremendously awful or racist. But you do get some like feedback, and that's how they justify it. The comment has to be feedback. If it's just to harm the user, then you're going to be reported and eventually kicked out. So I'm wondering how much of the culture change was related to people also maybe getting kicked out for being really aggressive or trolly on the service. But I don't know. So your thoughts? Do you think this is good that NewGrounds has low numbers as far as users and stuff like that?
I mean, I've said before, I don't think it's the quantity that we have to look at. It's oftentimes more important with the quality. And if it's 15 million very engaged users, that's more important than 60 million like sporadic non-engaged users. So again, I don't know enough about that, but from the curve, it looks like those 15 million have been there for a while, right? So it goes. It's like if you look at your email opening rates, right? Let's say you have 2,000 email subscribers, and you send out a newsletter every week. The first email will be opened by a lot of people, but then eventually, as time moves on, there will be a consistent amount of people that will open that email, and that will be your true fans. And again, here you can see too that there is these 50 million people that have been going there for at least a year. Consistently, so those will probably be the true fans, and that kind of tells me that they're probably more engaged than they were when it was like in 2010, right? When there were 60 million people. But again, this is just an assumption.
You're right, a hypothesis based on what we're seeing. I'm also interested in. Well, I mean, it looks like there's a lot of English-speaking countries, but I'm also interested to see how many of these people have dead accounts. So like maybe they weren't booted or kicked. So one of my friends has a NewGrounds account, but he doesn't go on there anymore. But he didn't delete his account. You get what I'm saying? So that means that there's still these people are getting emails if they're not just blocking them, but they have like inactive accounts because this is only looking at the traffic, not necessarily the total number of account users.
That's the active number of accounts, right?
Yes, people actually going on there and doing things. So again, like this drop off here, it still means there are people that are going on and off with over the 10 millions on the site. And I can attest there are players. There's still people playing games all the time. And it's really cool. It's been a shock to look at this curve in the beginning, especially since this is 2010 or 2010. But at the same time, I can understand it, My friend says it's not the same NewGrounds, and it's not. I had to get used to the changes myself. Anyway, hopefully everyone's been enjoying this content, even though our average watch time is 5 minutes. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell. We're at 13 now. Subscribers. It's great. It's awesome. We're really excited. But we need more.
Kind of a big deal.
That is a big deal. I mean, people are actually liking our content. And as always, please remember to play it forward. And I'd like to give out a final shout out as I endorse this game, even though I got this game for free. Utopia 9. I enjoy it. It's like FTL meets Nuclear Throne. It makes top-down shooting interesting because there's actually cover based in the level design, even though it's like randomly generated, which I appreciate as a person who got tired of top-down shooters. And it's something that Swenny has been working on and still kind of working on. And Swenny, do you just take any game?
Oh no, I don't. I don't want to mention any names, but there are some indie game publishers that just like take anything that comes in the door, and we're very selective about whom we were working with. It's very important because it also uses our time and resources. So we really want to work with someone. It doesn't have to be like that they're super popular and have made a lot of popular games, but they really have to have the drive and the motivation and the ambition to that we have. You know, they really want to get somewhere, go
Right.
somewhere.
That's exactly why Swenny has said no to helping me with my game. I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you so much, and as always, play it forward.
Play it forward, guys.